Live. If y'all can't tell, this is not my normal setup. Let me know if you can hear me. I'm sicker than a snicker right now, and I have no voice. But we're gonna try to power through this, and I'm probably gonna have to be brief with this one because I'm about to pass out. Ndewo. We already got 4 people in here. I'm gonna begin the topic once we get to. Hi, Chimoge. Ndewo. Onyeze. Onyeze. Takwaji. Okay, great, awesome. All right, so we are going to today's topic is going to be on the ilu that I have in the title. The ilu says an abomination that lasts more than a year becomes a tradition. We are going to be talking about this particular ilu. For anybody who's new, one, this is not my normal voice. Two, two, my name is Derek Ofarunwa. I'm the host of the Medicine Shell. I teach about Igbo spirituality, cosmology, and culture here on this channel. Subscribe if you haven't already. I think there should be a button below. And if you are subscribed and you want to learn more and you want to support this channel, or if you want to support this movement, because it's not even a channel anymore. We're a movement, right? If you want to support the movement, go ahead and join us at patreon.com/the Medicine Shell. Awesome. So I'm a researcher. If I have to give myself a title, I'm a researcher, and I make my entire research library available. So if you're interested in Igbo or even African, or just African diasporic spirituality, culture, cosmology, anything like that, it's all available for patrons as well as exclusive videos. So we're gonna start this one when we get to 20 people. That'll give me some time to deal with the pain that's going on in my voice. I came to Houston for my brother-in-law's wedding, and somebody was just called. I don't know what was going on there, but it was a wonderful wedding, but everybody came out of it sick. So everybody walked out of it sick. I'm sick, my son's sick, my daughter's sick. My wife's okay, which is suspicious, but it's cool. And my father-in-law is sick and everybody, so we're all just here dealing with it. So that's what you're hearing in my voice. But today's topic is going to be on the ilu, an abomination that lasts more than a year becomes a tradition. As always, we always have a quota before we start. So once we get 20 people in here, we're going to go ahead and start. And this is an ambitious one. We usually say 15, but I'm feeling good. So let's go ahead and hit to 20. If you're currently watching and you know anybody that would be interested in these topics, send them the link. Tell them that the live is on. Post it on Instagram. Post it on Facebook. Post it on Twitter. Let's get everybody in here. Right now we are at 13 people. 13 people. Once we get to 20 people, I'm going to go ahead and start and explain the ilu, an abomination that lasts more than a year becomes a tradition. This is more than I've talked in 2 days, by the way. I'm trying to see if I can have the chats show, but every time I touch the screen, everybody disappears. Believe it or not, I used to work at IT. Make it visible. All right, cool. The Medicine Shell Movement, aka MS. I like that. Yeah, I like that. Hold on. Somebody else said so. I gotta keep. Or you know what? I'm gonna jump in from another account. There. Much better. Much better. Give me just a second. Once we get 20 people in here, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Once we get 20 in, we begin. 20 in, we begin. Once we get 20 people, share this. You're sick and still here. That's dedication. Oh, Isabel, thank you. When you make things, you never want to go around saying how much you do to make it. But that's not the half of it, trust me. It is a miracle that I'm here, right? By grace of Chineke, and I know God that I'm here. And so that's being sick is not the half of it, trust me. But yes, this is the most I've talked in 2 days. We're still waiting for 20 people to come in here. We're going to be discussing the topic, if an abomination lasts longer than a year, it becomes a tradition. Cool. There were no. There were. Let's get a roll call. Who's all in the house? I see the Rude Mechanicals. Ndewo nwanne. Igwe Chukwu. Ndewo nwanne. Chimoge's comments. Um, Ndewo nwanne. Isabel M. Ndewo. We are still waiting to get, once we get 20 people in here, we'll go ahead and get started. And you know, you guys drive me crazy with this. We got 13 people in here, and only 10 have hit like. Only 10 have hit like. We got 14 people in here, and only 10 have hit like. Shout out to the 10 of you, but I don't know what I did to the other 4. I don't know if we got beef. I don't know if I said something in the last stream and you're still holding a grudge, but we got to get past this. Go ahead and hit like if you're in the chat. We always make sure that if you hit like. If you can't join the Patreon, and if you can't share the videos, the easiest way to help the channel is by hitting like. YouTube then recommends it to people who are of similar interest to you, or so they say they do. They change what they're looking for about every week, which is fine. You just got to keep up with the current. I've been dropping a lot of shorts. Am I ODing on the shorts? Uh-oh. There. Am I doing too many shorts, or are you guys okay with that? Hold on. YouTube wants us to do more shorts, and if you do shorts, they don't like your channel still keeps getting recommended to your subscribers. So, am I ODing on the shorts? I'm not seeing anybody's comments, by the way, unless you guys are just being quiet. All right, we got 15 people in here. One person hasn't hit like. All right, we need to identify who this one person who hasn't hit like is, and really ask this person what the problem is, right? The spirit of Buddha is what guides these live chats. The spirit of peace, the spirit of being, the spirit of life. And therefore, I don't know why you're doing some old non-peaceful, non-lifey, holding on to the like behavior. Go ahead and hit like if you're if you're watching. Once we get 20 people in here, we're going to begin. The topic is an abomination that lasts more than a year becomes a tradition. We got 15 people, so whoever that was has hit like, and somebody new came in and doesn't know how things work around here. Listen, new person, if you're new, if you're just coming in, you gotta hit like. I'm talking to you. I'm specifically, you know exactly who you are. I'm talking to you. Hit the like button. Hey, somebody says, what's good, y'all? Just found out I'm Igbo, in here to learn. Ben Real, Ndewo Nwanne. There's a lot to be learned. There's a lot to be learned. Get on the Patreon. I think you'll like it. And then we can talk one-to-one and so forth. Where are we at? Just found out I'm Igbo. I'm here to learn. If I could like twice, I would. Your content's fine. I appreciate it, Ben. Appreciate it. Shorts are really helpful, specifically for newcomers. Great, good. That's what I wanted to hear. That's what, cause yeah, I would imagine at this point, it's like, where the hell do I begin? Some of you guys have been here, like, honestly, I don't think any, let me not say that, but few channels have had as many, like, day oneers as us. So I want to thank you guys, you understand, for that fact. But there's been people who've been here since the beginning. This is my first video, and they're still going strong. I mean, at this point, we're friends. And, but I'm not friends with anybody in case somebody was doing crazy. But at this point, so I'm friends with some people now. And I would imagine somebody coming in now would have a hard time knowing where to jump in, because I kind of do things, there's a very vague chronology to everything. I just finished my Akaraka video, palm reading, Igbo palm reading. And I'm very proud of this video. The reason I'm very proud of this video is because this is a tradition that's dying out. So I actually want to do more than one video on it, but this is going to be the first one. And in this one, I explain what the lines of the poem mean, and I explain like how it's different from palm reading you might be used to, and then why this particular tradition was suppressed by the British. The British took very careful and very deliberate intent towards suppressing this and traditions like it, which is Igbo palm reading, Akaraka. So that's going to be my next video. I'm going to try to put it out tomorrow morning. So what I'm going to do before I go to bed is I'm going to like put it like a thing where you can click the bell. I don't know what you call it. Pre-schedule it. And then from there you guys can jump in. We're at 17. Once we get 20 people in here, we're going to go ahead and begin. For those who are new, my name is Derek Ofarongwa. I am the host of The Medicine Shell. I teach Igbo spirituality, culture, and cosmology. I used to call this a channel, but at this point we're a movement, right? So if you're down with the movement, we are bringing back our ancestral traditions. We are throwing off a lot of the fictitious things we've been told, and we are returning to what's original to us. If you're down with that particular movement, go ahead and hit like and join the Patreon at patreon.com/themedicineshell. Adeze, oh, hi Derek, nice to see you. Adeze, very nice to see you too. Very nice to see you too. Shorts have been appreciated. Okay, cool. All right, yeah. So I said I want to make a short a day and just get it out there so people can, have a place to start, and so forth. So if they're helping, then I'll keep doing them. That's good. I was really hoping you guys didn't say I don't like it, because YouTube is not about to recommend anybody who's not using shorts right now. They'll get over it. Maybe I shouldn't be saying all this shit on their platform. They'll get over it, but as of now, that's the temperature. We need one more person and we're going to start. We are 1919. We are 1919. I got to do Otua Neke. I got to do Otua Nori. I got to do Otua Nafo. I got to do Otua Nankwo. We went back to 18. Maybe I shouldn't be speaking more. Namdi Uzuku. Hi, Ndewo Nwanem. Ndewo. Roll call. Who's all in here? Who's all in here that I haven't shouted out? I'm very sick, y'all, so pardon me on that. Today we're going to be talking about the ilu that says an abomination that lasts more than a year becomes a tradition, right? An abomination that lasts more than a year becomes a tradition. I got a lot to say about it. I was thinking a lot about it when I was driving. When are you going to talk about touch and follow? A touch and follow, gang. Touch and follow, gang. Chibuzo. Wow, yeah, Chibuzo, it's been a very long time. How have you been? I think we used to talk on Twitter. I'm not 100% sure. Message me if we did. A touch and follow gang is in the house. Hey, anybody that wants to see a video on touch and follow, go to the Patreon and suggest it under one of the videos. Any topic you say, make a video about this, or I want to know more about this, under the comments. We put it up for vote on Patreon. The patrons pick what the next video is. So I'm collecting all of your comments, all the different topics you want to see. If you want to learn more about touch and follow, or maybe even something I've done a video about you want to get more info on, because there's always that. I was doing the, we just passed 20. Let me finish my rant and then I'll go into what we're going to do. So I was doing my Akaraka video, and in the middle of it I realized that I hadn't even done a video about Chuku, which is hilarious. All right, we have passed 20. He said, Chimoge says, Ninibu, touch and follow. Touch and follow is a type of nsi or juju that you go up to a young lady or a young man that you're attracted to, and you touch them with it, and they start following you. So whoever Ugochukwu Chid is has an intention that's unknown to me, but he wants the video on touch and follow. Now I'm here to teach. Again, you guys have to ask him, Ugochukwu Chid, why he wants to see a video on touch and follow, and why he can't just talk to the young man or maybe young lady that he, she, they, whatever is attracted to, right? All right, let's go ahead and begin. And there, one to everybody. I have in my hands Oseoji, and I have my hands the bitter cola. Now, I'm going to tell you guys something before I begin to break the Oji for us. I'm going to tell you something that's going to, it's very strange, right? I'm going to tell you guys something very strange. There's a direct connection between this. I've just learned this very recently. There's a direct connection between this and biblically accurate angels from the Bible. There is a direct connection, or Torah, whichever one. Direct connection between this and biblically accurate angels. You understand? Erykah Badu did touch and follow on Maybe. The eyes. Well done. There's more to it. We actually had a discussion on Patreon the last discussion we had was about this, and I might have to do like a part two because like I had to catch a flight, so I didn't get to really like elaborate, but it's all good. Anyways, let's go ahead and begin. Hold on. I'm really trying to make this thing work out here. There we go. There we go. I believe it. The eyes. And there will. All right, Kaibido. Okike ruwa. Alawala. Alane madu na ne mo. Alane nyendo. Nenye ike. Nenye nyoma n'ụwa. Ala bụ nne anyị niile. Ma ndị mbụ na ndị egede. Ụmụ aja na ụmụ kpakpando. Ọjị abịala. Ọjị m ji n'aka bụ nke ga-agọzi anyị na mmadụ, ga-agọzi anyị na mmụọ, nke na-enye ndụ, nke na-enye ike, nke na-edume anyị, nke anyị na-eso. Mana ebe ọbụla ị hụrụ ọjị, ị hụrụ ndị ichie na ndị ọkpụ gị, ị hụrụ ndị mbụ na ndị egede, ị hụrụ ndị mmadụ na ndị mmụọ, ị hụrụ nke Chineke nyere anyị ka anyị ji ama onwe anyị. Ọ ya ka m ji n'aka, ọ ya ka m ga-enye unu. Otu a ka ọ ka dị n'Eke, n'Orie, n'Afọ, na Nkwọ, ise. All right, so one of the things that you may have noticed I did was I threw something over my shoulder. Traditionally, some people, when you're breaking Aji, you'll do this. It is said that this particular one is for Ekwensu, who you don't mention, but you go ahead and give him his piece. But, you know, if you guys want me to explain, I can do a whole video on Kola Aji. I haven't done Chuku, and I haven't done Aji, which, if you understand anything about Igbo culture, that's insane. And I haven't talked about either topic. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, y'all. We are here. So, let's go ahead and begin. The topic today is an abomination that lasts more than a year becomes a tradition. I want to go ahead and ask, what is you guys' interpretation of this Ilu? Go ahead and leave a comment. How do you interpret this Ilu? I want to hear what you guys have to say. It's interesting too, because sometimes like I'll look at an Ilu and it's self-evident, or feels self-evident to me, like, okay, it means what it says. But then somebody will tell me something that's just like completely different from what I was thinking, and it broadens my understanding of the Ilu. So go ahead and let me know. Hey, Akachi Kenga, ndewo nwanne, ndewo. Yes, so go ahead and let me know what you guys think the Ilu means. I need to shave. An abomination that lasts more than a year becomes a tradition. I don't know, I always forget the last part. And Snapple Cat said that's what's happened to Europe. Y'all, don't make me laugh too much. Don't make me laugh too much. That's what's happened to Europe. And does anybody else have an interpretation? So the interpretation of the Ilu, according to Snapple and Katz, is this is European History 101. An abomination that lasts more than a year becomes a tradition. Who else has an interpretation of this particular Ilu? I don't know if you guys are, I don't know if the internet's holding me down, or holding up too. I'm not seeing your comments. Adeze O, with her brilliant mind, or their brilliant mind, says, I guess like if it stays or isn't dealt with, it'll continue. So like it needs to be nipped in the bud. Ah, there we go. There's an interpretation. Like flyers. Hey! I know who that is. Like flyers says, basically something that violated the agreement with where you live that hasn't been rectified within the cycle of the seasons is now something that people have adapted to as normal. Damn. Damn. All right, I want to hear more. Generational dysfunction. Ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth? Yes, ain't that the truth? Generational dysfunction. On the surface, it sounds like the foundation for full spectrum of addiction. Wow. Evil is addictive. Wow. Good at first, then becomes a fruitless habit. Wow. Interesting you say good at first, too. It's interesting you say good at first too. We had a really good discussion on the Patreon, and it's still up for those who are patrons. Like if you're patrons and you haven't seen it, just message me which one it is. I'll take you to it. We were discussing the idea of cargo cults, cargo cults, and the discussion was really good. One of the patrons, it wasn't even me that brought this up, it was one of the patrons that brought this up. Shout out to him. I'm not going to name him, but shout out to him. He was talking about the idea of cargo cults. It's spelled just like the word cargo and then cults. I'm not going to go ahead and explain it, so go ahead and Google it. It's fascinating stuff. I almost want to make a video about it because it does relate to what we're talking about. The dysfunction which people come to tolerate can become accepted as of their reality. Often, especially among us in our present state, people embrace this dysfunction and seek to sustain it. Damn. All right. Damn. All right. Come on, Rashad killed it. Snapple and Cats, oh my god, I wonder if that's why Californians have accepted that they have a fire season. Oh, I didn't know that. That's sad. I've never been to California. But yeah, I've never been to California. You guys need to give me an excuse to go to California. But yeah, I'll do my epi-eugenics. Trauma becomes habit passed down through generations. Damn. Wow. Man, maybe I should just turn the mic over to you guys. You guys, I'll do my. All right, so let me go ahead and get my breakdown. Wait, Chimoge's got one. You shouldn't do something because it's the norm. It might be bad, and it's. Hold on, let me read it over here. You shouldn't do something because it's the norm. It might be bad, and it might not have always been the norm. Oh, interesting. You might let your own beliefs and intuition. You must let your own beliefs and intuition have the last word on your behavior. That's profound. I like that. That's profound. Very good. All right, y'all, let's go ahead and begin. I'm going to go ahead and explain what this particular ELU means. This deep truth makes unveiling... Damn, let me not interrupt the flow. All right. This deep truth makes unveiling authentic root traditions difficult because many modern-day clans/tribes, kingdoms, spiritual systems only know the traditions and customs adopted through bad war times. Damn, wow, this is 100% true. This is 100% true. There's an ELU that says, let me try to remember it accurately. The ELU says that in a time of war, we know which Arushi is powerful, right? In a time of war, we know which Arushi is powerful. There's a direct connection between the Arushi that were abandoned in different communities and the ones that are still maintained and kept up and that kind of thing, and how effective they were during the Biafra War. You know, so yeah, it was, and it's just something I've come to find. But yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call anything bad. It's just what it is. You can use it for bad and so forth. But in a time of war, we're more than likely to use these things for what would eventually be bad when the war is over. There's also an ELU that says a time of war is not a time of judgment. Right, so that kind of goes full circle on that. Snapple and Cat says, yeah, Sherilyn, I like that Chimoge. No, Chimoge spits fire. Chimoge spits fire. Yeah. I'm 25. Fire season wasn't a thing when I was growing up, but I hear older people saying it's fire season. I don't get it. Damn. Akachi Kenga. Can you say the ELU about war and the Irish and Igbo? It's hard for me to say because I can't pronounce the GH, but let me just go ahead and try. Mgbe aha bịa, anyị ga-ama arụsị ka ibe ya. Mgbe aha bịa, anyị ga-ama arụsị ka ibe ya. Mgbe aha bịa, anyị ga-ama arụsị ka ibe ya. I wish I can type, but I don't want to risk anything. I don't want to do no stunts. All right, y'all. Adeze O says, many times trauma in person, let me read it over here, it can go away. Many times trauma in a person decontextualized over time can look like personality. Damn. Damn. I'm going to read that again so you guys can hear this. Many times trauma in a person decontextualized over time can look like personality. Trauma in a family decontextualized over time can look like family traits. Wow, that's dope. Trauma decontextualized in a people over time can look like culture. It takes time to slow down and so you can begin to discern what's what. Well done. This was a quote by Resma Menkem. I don't know who that is. That's really dope, Adeze. I like that quote. Adeze with that was yeah, yeah. I agree. Excuse me. Oh, there's something going around, by the way. So heads up. I want to get your masks back. I don't know. Said that's real. Love that quote. Grateful for this Elu because it challenges the belief that Afro philosophy is about preserving things at all costs. Damn. Okay. We must review our beliefs at all times and know what doesn't serve us. Isabel, theology, 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 theology. Yes, the past is a powerful thing, but one of the reasons I always make sure to include the messed up things our ancestors did is because I don't want to create the impression that I'm here trying to romanticize the past. Right? We're in the present, and most of us should be grateful that we're in the present. And there are a lot of things that we're going to carry over from the past that need to be reassessed. Now, the question is, what are they, and who are we to reassess them? Because a lot of the things I disagreed with when I was younger, now that I'm older, I understand, and I learned a lot more from. Yeah, I said that right. I learned a lot more from them. Like, especially with Odinani. It's the things in Odinani that looked crazy to me that I ended up learning the most from, right? The idea of blood sacrifice does not appeal to me whatsoever. But when I finally looked in that direction, I said, okay, what's going on here? What does this mean? What's going on? So oftentimes, while it's good to be able to look at the traditions we're carrying over to the next generation and say which ones we need to reassess, so on and so forth, sometimes we don't fully understand, we're not equipped to understand ones that are bad, right? And maybe they're not that bad when you really fully understand them. Or maybe it's like one of those situations where you have a house and there's this really ugly pillar right in the middle of it, and you buy this new house and you want to renovate the house and you say, okay, let's get rid of this ugly pillar so we can have a nice house, and you knock it down, the whole house collapses, right? So some of those ugly pillars hold the house up. So while I do agree with a lot of what you guys are saying, I want you guys to keep that in mind as well. A lot of the things that are disagreeable in human culture, the things when that thing gets, that's why it's called a Pandora's box, can of worms, whatever. Once you take that thing out, you're going to see why that thing existed. It's like when they got rid of Saddam Hussein and then ISIS showed up, Turns out Saddam Hussein wasn't the worst possible thing, Shout out to that boy Saddam too. Oh no, wait. Where are we at? All right, guys, let me go ahead and share my own thoughts on this particular Elu. So the Elu that we're discussing, right? For those who don't know, an Elu is an ancestral proverb. Ndibo, our ancestors codified all their knowledge in very quick to understand proverbs, right? And sayings and phrases. These sayings and phrases are referred to as Elu, right? Which I'm wondering, I'm going to double check, but I think in my dialect it's called Iru. And if you break that down from my own understanding, it's like reaching or understanding, little understandings. Ilu to understand, Iru to reach, that kind of thing. So, but I have to double check that, right? That kind of thing. So, but this particular Ilu says that an abomination that lasts more than a year becomes a tradition. So there's something that I think everybody should understand. Everything in the world did not come from the world. There's a place that all of these things come from, be they us human beings, the idea of life, our ideas, so on and so forth. They don't originate in this thing that we call the world, right? They come from somewhere else. And when they come into our world, the first thing they're going to do is adapt to the rules of this world that we're in. And one of the rules of this world that we're in is to survive. So if an impulse comes from beyond, right, maybe it comes from the imagination and it becomes a reality, The next thing that's going to happen is that impulse. I want you to look at that impulse as its own living thing. It's going to want to survive. It's going to want to feed. It's going to want to grow. It's going to want to multiply. It's going to want to simulate or experience what we call life. There's nothing in the universe that isn't in the process of preserving itself, keeping itself alive, or perpetuating itself in the way it is capable of, and so forth, right? And this doesn't end at physical objects or people or organisms. This can end in this can be traumas, ideas, feelings, right? Concepts, so on and so forth, right? You look at like one of the things, I don't really get into the whole communism, all that shit. A lot of what is told to us about government, for example, I'm looking at with a side eye, because what I know is that all this thing is an organism that wants to preserve itself, and it's going to do whatever it takes to preserve itself, whether it's following the accords it kept with us, whether it's not, so on and so forth. It's just going to preserve itself. And this goes with ideas, this goes with actions, so on and so forth. This goes with us individuals, human beings, and so forth, right? So what ends up happening is something that we do not want enters the world for whatever reason it is, right? Perhaps we go to war and we pick up violence, the spirit of violence, and we return to the community with that spirit of violence, and it then, through us, wants to spread. It wants to spread to our children, it wants to spread to our spouses, it wants to spread to our siblings and our friends, and it's going to find a way to inflict itself on them through us, by way of us, right? I can't be the only person who does something and regrets it afterwards. We all do this. And this tells you that you're not 100% the one in control. There are things that run through you, right? Now, self-mastery is reaching a place of control, a place that you are the operator, right? Which is what most of Odinani, or a lot of Odinani, is about, right? But these things run through us and they enter us, and then they use us as a conduit for acting in the world, right? So traumatized people who have experienced trauma, have an inclination to want someone to feel what they felt. The healthy way of wanting someone to feel what they felt is sharing it. The least healthy way of wanting someone to feel what they felt is inflicting it, right? An abusive parent, you double check the person was likely abused, right? That type of thing. So these things that run through us, they wish to preserve themselves. Nobody's going to sit there and say they like, or few people are going to say that they like these things, they want these things to exist in the world. But then when we enter that state of mind where we're no longer in control, they act, right? They act through us. You understand? Somebody said this, and I was going to say, somebody said this very well, that a lot of people's personalities are just their traumas expressing themselves, right? A lot of people's personalities are their traumas expressing themselves. My sister was telling me about her boss. Maybe I shouldn't. Someone I know was telling me about their boss. And this person was telling me, that it's very obvious this person was picked on when they were younger, because the way the person interacts with people now is like a bully, right? But without the position, it'd be hard to imagine this person bullying people, right? So you can imagine where this particular impulse came from. It's something that he's not in control of. It's just using him as a conduit. He's possessed, as some people would say, right? People think of possession, they think it's this big dramatic thing where, the Babadook comes out and makes you do things. That's not what it is, right? A lot of these things you see them every day. You see them every day. You feel something, you want it gets in you and it wants to perpetuate, right? There's an ilu that says, and this goes two ways too, because there's an ilu that says, when food tastes good, we share it with others, right? So you taste something, you go, oh, they taste this. It's a natural thing. It's a natural thing to taste something that tastes good and say, hey, check this out. It's a natural thing to hear music that sounds good and want somebody else, hey, listen to this, check this out. It's a natural thing to watch a movie that was good or made you feel good or you felt was well done and turn around and say, I want somebody else to do this. This is the spirit of those things perpetuating itself through us, and it's okay, right? But we have to be aware of when it's happening, because a lot of our personalities are a combination of trauma responses, trying to take control. A lot of our cultures are a combination of trauma responses trying to take control. A lot of our family traditions are a combination of the same thing trying to take control, right? So as somebody said earlier, whatever traditions you partake in, be sure that they're the ones that serve you. Be sure that they're the ones that give more than they take. And if they take more than they give, understand why. It's not that you'll just be receiving, receiving, receiving. Sometimes you got to do something that sucks. I'm sick right now. I can't talk. It's the most I've talked in goddamn 2 days. But I feel like I have to share this message, right? It's important, right? Shit hurts, but it's important, right? That type of thing. If okay, that's my niece. So when so when you're assessing these things, be able to assess from an adult side, with an adult side. Um, but yeah, that's really it. That's what I wanted to share. If y'all have questions, hit me with it. Once the questions end, I'll go ahead and shut the live off. I really appreciate you guys for being here. We've got 30 people in here. That's a lot, so that's awesome. We're about to start getting 100 in here too. Hey, so we can get 100 in here. Start sharing these videos. Share them on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, wherever you share things. I'm going to read some of you guys' comments. I thought of you today. I hope you're well. Oh, Creative Force, I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. I'm getting there. I'm good anyways. I'm fine. Getting sick is normal. It's not a big deal. I have perhaps a strange question. Does this rule of self-preservation include things that we don't think of life, such as stars, rocks, and comments? Ah, there you go. Now you're asking a good-ass question. Yes, 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 yes. Let me say it this way. When I'll say something, it might not make sense to everybody, but it'll make sense to the people it needs to make sense to. When you look at a galaxy pattern, right? The simulations, wherever they make of the galaxy patterns, we know that the galaxy is in a spiral. When you listen to if you pick up like a nautilus, like the shell, one of them seashells, right? And you listen to it, you hear a bunch of noises, just it sounds like the ocean, right? And that thing is shaped like a spiral. You understand? I had this really good discussion with Hugo Sirius, and we were talking about the hippocampus. The hippocampus is inside the head. It is a part of the brain that deals with memory. It deals with memory. Before you're about to pass, it begins to wither, throughout life, that kind of thing, but it's shaped like a spiral. And he says that the Ikenga horns are the hippocampus. I believe him too. I think he's right. He's 100% right. And when you look at all those things, they're all shaped like a spiral. Well, what I've come to see is that nature has these finite set of patterns that it uses to create things. And when nature wants to preserve preserve itself, right? When it wants to stay alive, anything that wants to hold something, it forms in a spiral. And the galaxy itself is in a spiral, right? Now, I'm not a physicist, but I'm assuming, okay, energy impulses, it's probably trying to hold in what it can hold in. Because that spiral shape retains things. It retains sound in the hippocampus, it retains memory, so on and so forth, right? So again, I'm not a scientist, but I have noticed that things that we wouldn't ordinarily call living do try to preserve themselves. And when they try to preserve themselves, there is a consistent appearance of the spiral shape, right? That type of thing, or a web shape, or a radial shape, that kind of thing. So long story short, yeah, everything tries to preserve itself. The earth tries to preserve itself. The sun tries to preserve itself. The planets, the solar system, and so forth. Trees, human beings, minerals, and that kind of thing. Where are we at? Oh, spirals preserve things. I remember you saying, okay, dope. Dalu Derek from today. My first live. Oh, Dalu, one day, Dalu. All this makes sense. Makes me think of corporal punishment in the black race. Corporal punishment in the black race as a trauma response. Yes. Do you know what's funny too? I heard old people back home say that in the past they didn't used to beat kids, which is hard to imagine, right? But in the past they used to beat kids. But then you look at all of the institutions, this is for Nigerians, they'll understand it more. You look at all the institutions where whipping is normal, they are direct British instruments. Schools, the military, the police, all these where the whipping is 100, the corporal punishment is 100% normal, right? That kind of thing. And so you wonder where that came from, and then you realize, I mean, you look into the history of it. Corporal punishment, we know what it is, right? We know where it came from, and so forth. And so post-colonial, right? Black people all over the world, Africans all over the world, who are living in the post-colonial context, have this thing in common of corporal punishment, and they believe it's their culture. They believe it's their culture, right? That kind of thing. But then you look at where it came from, right? And I mean, it's going to sound crazy, but we're somewhat lucky that colonialism ended fairly recently in Nigeria, because you can get a more accurate trace of where a lot of these things came from, right? If you go to any institution we inherited from the British, they all involve whipping. Somebody's going to get whipped. Military, schools, police, all of these things are going to involve whipping. Now, what does that say, right? If somebody doesn't believe you're a human being and they have to educate you, you think they're going to take their time and talk to you and explain things? No. You're going to whip your ass. Yeah, that's just what it is, that kind of thing. And then you look at where the corporal punishment thing is more common, right? Where it's more common around the world. Former colonies, former colony, former colony, former colony, that kind of thing. It's very consistent with former colonies, You can't do that in America, You can't really do that in America. Why? I gotta hit my kid. My kid's a human, So yeah, corporal punishment is a great example of an abomination that has been allowed to become a tradition, right? Now, does it mean that there wasn't pain inflicted on young kids in Africa and things like that, right? There's scarification, circumcision, both men and women, so on and so forth, but those aren't punishments. Fibonacci sequence, it's called. Oga Igwe says the Fibonacci sequence, the spiral, it's a self-preserving pattern. So anytime you see like something, from my own observation, anytime you see something with that pattern, there's a direct correlation with preservation, right? Even the coils on your stove, it holds the heat in. It holds the heat in. It's optimal for preserving that heat. If it's not a coil, it's going to be like a spider web stove, that kind of thing. Those things are preserving patterns. A circle is a preserving pattern. A circle, any orb, circle, that kind of thing, is a pattern of preservation, that kind of thing. Spirals, spider webs, and circles, And you look at the whole universe, everything forms in a circle, that kind of thing. My kid is a human. Yeah, man. Yeah, man. He was shocked. It's the same way colonial invaders treated Africans. Yeah, and you'll look at like if you're from like Nigeria, Kenya, that kind of thing. There are these certain things like if you pass a military officer and like they just feel like bullying you, they'll make you do something called a frog jump, where you'll squat like a frog and jump with your hands on your head. They'll make you kneel and hold your ear until it hurts. They'll just do all these kind of like really specific, brutal kind of like humiliation rituals. And I have a hard time believing it's impossible to not know where this is coming from, because you do it in Kenya, you do it in Malawi, you do it in India, you do it in Nigeria, you do it in Jamaica, you do it in all these places that are part of the British Empire. You understand? But you don't do it in Britain. So yeah, it is what it is, and that's what a lot of that is. A lot of the things that came from colonialism, slavery, so on and so forth, they get passed down as if they're culture, because they were abominations that were allowed to live too long. And that's why it's important to study history. That's why it's one of the reasons it's important to study history, is so that you can get a full context on some of these things. You can get full context on some of these things, right? That kind of thing. Oh, hey, Danielle. All right, Danielle says, good evening. I'm late, but wow, this is an important discussion. Holy Grail, where I'm from. One there. Old records they use for music. You guys are seeing where we're going with this, right? I tell people Dinani is not a religion. They say, "Oh, no, okay, okay," you know, right? And here you guys are. You're making these scientific assessments of these things. It's not completely science either. It's something else, you know. You guys are making these scientific assessments of this thing. Oh, record players, they have that pattern. They preserve things. They hold things, right? Tapes, all that stuff. Yeah, it's that pattern is a preserving pattern of preservation. The spiral. Let me say it this way: the spiral in the Uli language, has two meanings, but they're not really that different. Especially if you watch my next video. The first meaning is akaraka, the your palm, that kind of thing. But also your akaraka is like your spiritual makeup, your spiritual makeup. What types of ofo do you hold in the world? That's what your akaraka is. The symbol for akaraka is a spiral. This symbol for eke chineke, right? The divine feminine, the universe. The universe. The symbol for the universe in Uli is also a spiral, right? How did they know it was a spiral? How did they know it was a spiral? Cite your sources. Cite your sources. I'm making fun of somebody very specific. He's a very annoying young man. The symbol for Eke, the divine feminine, who's also the universe, is a spiral. It's a spiral. So for this reason, a lot of people will say that Eke and Akaraka are the same thing. They are. It's the same thing. A lot of people will then accidentally say that Eke means your destiny. Your destiny is a part of Eke, but it doesn't just mean your destiny. That kind of thing. Source the goddamn universe. Yeah. We are the cite your sources. Yeah. Exactly, right? What would you call science in Igbo? Wow. Well, let's look up what's the definition of science. I'm not an expert Igbo speaker, so hold on. Definition of science. What exactly does that word science actually mean? Meaning. Somebody wants to post the meaning in the chat, that'd be cool too. A systematic study of the structure and behavior of the physical and natural world through observation. So the word for science in Igbo is odinani. Yeah, experimentation, testing of theories against evidence obtained. Science in Igbo is odinani. That's literally odinani. Ah, there you go. There you go. There you go. You know, the reason yeah, science to know, right? I've heard people. No, let me not do that. That's not even a translation. It's ordinary. Makes sense. French and Latin to know. Dope. Turntables, wormholes. Damn. The verb know in Igbo is ma, M-A, ma. Yeah. Science could also be, let's say, study. Something along the lines of amuma, igu amuma, iba amuma, udinani, observation. Yeah, observation is just udinani as it is, truth. Cite your sources thing is even funnier. Hold on, the cite your sources thing is even funnier when you realize that the source is another name for chi and chuku. Often wrongly called God. Cite your sources, cite your gods. Damn! Chimoge be spitting. Go subscribe to Chimoge's comments, y'all. It's got bars for days. Nadine, the holding cell in Jamaica for male prisoners is the same place where enslaved Africans were held. The present conditions are atrocious. Imagine the trauma. Same thing. Well, not necessarily slaves, but like similar situation with prisons in Nigeria. You understand? They just pile people in there. Um, yeah, yeah. It's interesting too. I had this when I've been working on a documentary for Ekumeku, the Ekumeku resistance, and I wanted to look into how slavery ended. And it was interesting because it took me back to, I want to say it was Taki's rebellion in Jamaica. Um, Either Taki's rebellion or like the Christmas uprising, something like that. But there was an uprising, and they voted in England whether they should end slavery because it's becoming too much. And the one big issue was that a lot of the lords in England were the ones that were enslaving people in the Caribbean, and the people at home, ironically led by the church, wanted to end slavery. And in their push to end slavery, the compromise was they were going to replace, because it's like, okay, if you're going to end my bread and butter, you need to compensate me, you need to blah, 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 blah. So the compromise they did in Jamaica and places like that is they introduced a system called apprenticing, right? This is not related to the Igbo apprenticeship system, but they introduced a system called apprenticing. And the apprenticing meant that the people who had enslaved you were now your boss, and you are now an apprentice. You understand? And they did a survey. The only reason that the lords agreed to this is they did a survey, and they found out through the research and survey and all that stuff, they found out that people were more productive, enslaved people are more productive if you give them a sense of autonomy and money. If you give them a sense of autonomy and money. So I'm going to give you your money, and then you can go buy something with it, and then you come back and do your thing. And they replaced slavery in Jamaica with apprenticing, which I'm sure has now become employment. And this method was applied in many places. In many places. And that's how we got to where we are today, right? And even with the United States, there's a lot about the employment culture that looks kind of slavey. Especially the customer service, the whole customer service thing strikes me as mighty slavey, you know? I'm not saying anybody in customer service is a slave or anything like that, but the root, right? The roots of this thing. I'm not going to fully pay this person, but if they are, they treat you good and make you feel like a king, you dash them a little something, right? Dash them a little something. That is the custom here in the U.S. Now, I tip, even when I go to Nigeria, I tip everywhere. Nigeria is a very frustrating ass place because it's full of Nigerians. But it becomes really easy once you start tipping and, just kind of playing the game. It becomes really easy and best place on earth to be. I don't know why I'm here. How do I... Going from chattel slavery to capitalism. Maybe. That's sharecropping, yes. More specific trade labor in the U.S. Yes, Chambry, yep. That's how they try, it's the same thing. They're just like, we're not, this thing is a tradition at this point. It's gone on too long. Let's make it look like something else, But that was the only way they agreed, is if they can turn it into apprenticing, and if the apprentices stayed on the plantations and so on and so forth. Yes, literally slavery is still legal. The 13th Amendment is punishment for a crime. So it's literally transition from open field to closed prison. Yeah. So 13th Amendment, we know about that. The shit's still very legal. And there's an abomination that is now a tradition, right? I don't believe in incarceration. I got arrested for resisting arrest one time. I'm not making this shit up. I'm not cutting anything out of the story. That's what it is. I was arrested for resisting arrest. I was in there for just a tiny little bit of time. And, that was enough for, on the outside, you can see that it's no place for a human being to be. But when you're there, and other people have been there too, it's, anybody who gets used to that thing, something's been taken from you. I'm sorry, it's a horrible thing. I don't believe in incarceration. But yeah, I was resisting for resisting arrest. This white guy bumped into me, and I was like, what the fuck? And then he was all drunk and up in my face like this. And I was like, dude, whatever. And then the police were ran and tackled me. And then I'm like, hey, dude, he's the one, you know. And they, I got Black Lives Matter. And then they took me to the thing. I'm like, what are my charges? They say it's resisting arrest, you know. And I was like, whatever, you know. So that was that. The thing used to make me very angry. I was very angry about it for a long time, but I'm good now. Hasn't changed since. Where are we at? I got all excited when everybody was talking about that Black Lives Matter thing, though, and then they just got distracted and started talking about celebrities and Joe Biden and shit. So I said, all right, I'll catch you guys on the next wave. You know? But once you guys start that thing back up, I'm in. You know, that kind of thing. So I'll do my. Just found out that I'm Igbo and wanted to reclaim my ancestry. I'll do my. What would be the first step in doing this? If you're Igbo and you want to reclaim your ancestry, the first step in doing this, I think, is, and this is an opinion thing, I would learn how to perform Iwaji, the breaking of the kola nut ceremony, right? I would learn how to perform that. I would learn how to perform it in Igbo. If you can start from there and pan out, you'll be okay. Second step, I would learn the language. And I haven't even shouted out. I have a language school, so if you're interested, message me. But that's it, guys. That sounds angering. It's wild to think that this stuff is normal. Yeah, it's extremely wild to think it's normal. You go through like a trauma cycle where you're extremely angry. You know, that whole thing, you want to inflict that same thing on someone else. Especially because when it happened, nobody like believed me, right? Everybody's just like, oh, you must have been arguing with them. Oh, you must have been whatever. And so that made me very angry. And so I was extremely angry. And then I became angry to a fault. Like, I was bugged out. And then it was funny because I was working at the Mission. I used to work at the homeless shelter back. Unhoused persons. Listen, those guys have never heard that term before. Homeless shelter. The fuck. But yeah, I used to work at the homeless shelter, and the same cop that did that, he had to keep doing the responses. So he'd come there and he'd have to now like work with me, and I'd just be looking at this guy like, yeah, dude, I remember. And after that, I wasn't really that mad at him. I wasn't that mad at all. I didn't expect better from him. And I think a lot of my anger came from having a tiny little place in my heart where I wanted to expect more from that. But that was being childish and that kind of thing. And then shit happens, it's whatever. If that's the worst thing that's ever happened to me, I've lived a very good life. People have been through worse. Gaslighting is why people think it's normal. We lie to each other and ourselves. I believe that. Go rest, get some honey lime. If it wasn't for honey lime and bitter cola, I wouldn't even be able to open my mouth. This is the only reason I can talk like this. But all right, guys, I do got to wrap up before I'm done for. Turn out Igbo, that kind of thing. Yeah. Okay. All right, cool. Got to wrap up, guys. It's been a wonderful discussion. I appreciate you guys' contributions. You guys had a lot of really dope things to say. So if anybody's watching the replay of this, make sure you have the chats open because you're going to miss the good stuff if you don't. That being said, my name again, Derek O'Father-in-law with the Medicine Shell. I want to see you guys on the Patreon, right? So if you want to support the channel, the best way to do it, I'm going to type it here, is patreon.com. Thank you, Danielle. Patreon.com/ I hope I didn't bum anybody out with this police brutality story. Like, honestly, I'm not even tripping. Like, people get their ass kicked all the time. It ain't that big a deal. But yeah, patreon.com/ the medicine shell. Let me pin this message to the top. There. I'll do my. Cool. Cachifo, rest up. Support the channel at patreon.com/ the medicine shell. If you're ever going to ask to cite your sources, I got all my sources in my medicine library. It's got tons of books, articles, journals from DBS, Nzes, and different people. One of the things I like reading in the folder are like first-hand accounts, like Europeans almost always, going to Igbo land or different places in Africa in like the 1300, not 13, in like the 15, 1400s, 1600s, and describing what they're seeing and that kind of thing. It's really fascinating. It's really fascinating. So I got all that in there. If you're already a patron, you want some links to those, message me. I'm like the librarian for that. You also get access to the calendar. The Odinani calendar tells you, it helps you get a grasp of how our ancestors understood time. So in our ancestral, somebody was asking me what you should do, to learn about Igbo culture. First, learn how to break the Oji, learn how to perform Igbo Oji. But one of the things to consider is learning how we relate to time. So we have a 13 moon calendar that has 4 days in a week instead of 7. We have 4 days in a week. Eke Day is the day of rest, right? And that kind of thing. So if you're a patron, I have a calendar that links to your Google Calendar and tells you which traditional day it is. It also tells you which traditional moon we're under. And then, of course, we have exclusive videos in our group discussion. All of that is at patreon.com/The Medicine Shell. Hey, those of you that are signing up for Kedu, if you're signing up for Kedu this spring, we got 2 weeks to go. I think 2 weeks to go till we start. So hurry up and sign up. If you signed up in the past and you're not 100% in it, go ahead and come back. It's okay. It's not no big deal. But yeah, so we're going to be starting in 2 weeks with the spring session. And for those who don't know what I'm talking about, I have an Igbo language school at www.kedu.me. If you are interested in learning the Igbo language and Igbo customs, we got 2 weeks to go to finish registering. So go ahead and sign up at www.kedu.me. With that being said, guys, uno gade, uno geto, gobala, uno tiaka, ogade no wa, ogade otu aneke, no rie, na fo, na nkwo. Peace.